The penalty phase in the trial of now convicted torture slaying ringleader Lemaricus Davidson got underway today. The state presented statements from the victims, Channon Christian and Christopher Newsom's mothers, as well as Shannon's brother and Chris's sister. But most of the day was devoted to the defense and their effort to convince this jury to spare Mr. Davidson's life. Chief among their witnesses were a foster couple who took care of him for about a year in Jackson, Tennessee. He would have been 16 to 17 years old at that time. It was Carl and Flo Rudd. Their son Seth also testified. And basically what they told this jury was that while in their care, Mr. Davidson fared well. He seemed to thrive. However, he continued to use marijuana, and ultimately they removed him from their home because of his repeated use of marijuana. They also testified about his mother, who was a crack addict, and they talked about how much they still cared about him, and basically wanted the jury to know that Lemaricus Davidson is a soul worth saving.
What does he mean to you?
He's like my son to me. And we love him very much.
Ms. Rudd, do you have a wish about the jury's decision you want to tell them about?
Well, I wish that they would be merciful enough to allow him to live.
Prosecution, however, used testimony from the Rudds and also from Alice Ray, who, along with her husband, operated a group home where Mr. Davidson stayed for several months, and who also have maintained contact with him. The prosecution used both of those two sets of foster parents to show the jury that Mr. Davidson had an opportunity when he was between 16 and 18 years old to turn his life around, had love and support, and rather than take advantage of that, went out and committed an aggravated robbery for which he served almost 5 to 6 years of prison time.
You took him in as your own son?
Yes.
Tried to teach him right from wrong?
Yes.
Tried to be a good influence on him?
Yes.
Provide a roof over his head and financial support?
Yes.
In fact, when you took him in, are you the one that told him you'll never have to wonder whether you could have done what you could have done if you had a chance, because you will have a chance?
I did that. I was picking him up at a group home. I knew that he had had 17 years of an absolutely miserable life, and I didn't know if I could undo the scarring that he had had, but I was committing to him that I would give it a try.
And did you give him that chance?
I gave it a try.
He was fresh out of prison when the torture slayings were committed. The defense also presented a psychiatrist from Signal Mountain. I think that the anticipation was, based on prior defense statements, that this psychiatrist would come in and talk about various mental ailments that Mr. Davidson might have had. They've mentioned bipolar disorder in their questioning of jurors. Instead, what he said was that Mr. Davidson was of average intelligence, and had he had more educational opportunities, would be above average intelligence, that he has no history of mental illness, no post-traumatic stress syndrome, no bipolar disorder, that he is a fully functioning adult. And what the psychiatrist essentially said was that given his mother's addictions and violence in his home, given the lack of monitoring and neglect in his early childhood, that by age 16 he was a lost cause and that violence was almost inevitable. I believe the psychiatrist said it was a statistical certainty that Mr. Davidson would turn violent.
There's nothing in the scientific literature, there's nothing that the experts could have said that this piece could have fixed what happened.
And so again, I go back to my original question, was it inevitable? Was there anything they could have done to save him, or was he just broken?
There's, whether it's me or any other expert, there's nothing that we could say they should have done this and this would have made a difference. No, we can't say that.
Based on all these factors, it was your opinion then at age 16 it was inevitable that he was going to become involved in violent crime?
It was just highly statistically probable. I hate to call anybody broken or untreatable.
That testimony was a bit of a shock given that the defense is trying to save his life. And the prosecution, of course, took full advantage of that to note that Mr. Davidson clearly was someone who made choices in his life.
So he didn't have a choice.
He had an individual choice in activities at different times. He's of average intelligence.
So he did have a choice?
In different contexts, he can make choices.
I'm talking about getting involved in violent crime. At age 16, when he goes into that foster family and they take him in, did he have a choice about whether he was going to get involved in violent crime or not?
Every individual has a choice.
And in the morning, we will have closing arguments from both sides, and then Mr. Davidson's life will be in the hands of this jury.